Faith is when there's no evidence or the evidence is contrary to where you want to be or better, and you still believe that you're supposed to be there and you can get there. That's what faith is. And what you believe in order to have that faith is critical.
Welcome to another episode of the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Matthews, and today we're joined by an extraordinary leader in business and personal growth, my good friend, David Meltzer. David is the chairman of the Napoleon Hill Institute and the former CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment, the agency that inspired Jerry Maguire. A globally recognized entrepreneur, investor, author, and business coach, he has been honored as Variety Sports Humanitarian of the Year and awarded the prestigious Ellis Island Medal of Honor. As executive producer of the 2-Minute Drill, Office Hours, and Elevator Pitch, David has been featured in books, movies, and TV, including Think and Grow Rich and Netflix's Beyond the Secret. David is on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy by providing one thing, value. Today, we'll find out exactly how he's doing it. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who'd benefit from today's conversation. David, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here in Nashville.
God blesses me to be here because I am blocks away, early Saturday mornings. This is my time where I do what I want because everyone in my family's sleeping. So a lot of people, they go crazy on a Saturday to come into an office to do an interview. There's nothing I'd probably rather be doing than meet with you guys here on Saturday.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Now, this isn't the only thing you got. I know you're really busy. You've been in town. You always have a million things going on. You're like, I was telling someone, because we spent a couple weeks ago, we were in Vegas together. I said, that guy's energy is on a whole different level. Like he never stops. But hybrid. One of the things you're doing is a firewalk.
Yeah.
Walk me and the audience through a firewalk.
Yeah. So number one, first lesson for your community, one that changed my life. I don't like busy. I'm probably the most active person you'll meet. Busy means unavailable. I have friends who get high every day, sit on their mom's couch, broke in their 50s and sick most of the time. I got friends that sit on their couch, high, broke, living with their mom at 50. They're the most busy people I know because they're unavailable. Yeah. Totally unavailable. Yeah, I like to be active and available. And one of the things I can do because I'm so active is do and experiment with things. And the firewalk is a whole process. It's not just walking on hot coals. It's building the whole thing and building the mindset around what the human experience can be. See, the biggest thing that we do is limit ourselves because we have a body. And what happens is our human experience is defined by time, the time that your heart stops or starts, and then your heart stops. That's your lifetime. That's your human experience. And within the context of that, we are part of an infinite experience. And regardless of your spirituality, religion, philosophies, or theories, there's an infinite belief that most people have. Infinite information, infinite energy, infinite power, infinite love. And yet we're stuck in this period of time between when your heart starts and when your heart stops. So I like to do things like a firewalk that shows me and reminds me the infinite, and also shows me how I can take this limitation, the human body that's here to learn lessons. The lessons will keep on coming until you learn them. You will forget every single lesson you've ever learned. But AI is also providing a greater enlightenment that we have the power to remember, remind, and recollect all information. We have that power. So it doesn't really matter that we forget it. So a firewalk to me represents the ability to expand my limiting beliefs, expand the meaning that I've given the past that limits me in the future. You see, most people are limited by two things. One, the past. They take a meaning of the past that limits themselves, and then they create an imagine or a self-image, and then that also limits you because you never will overachieve your own self-image. And you're perfect proof of that beyond the sports culture in your family, you expanded your imagination, your self-image to be the most successful Matthews I know.
That's very nice of you to say. Firewalk, you talk about limiting beliefs. Is it as simple as like my belief limits me to think that I can't walk across these coals, that it's going to be too painful, and mentally you're able to overcome that and prove to yourself you're able to do something that your mind limited you initially to think was not possible?
even furthermore, think about the physicality. It's one thing pain, right? Because pain is relative. Like, I don't understand David Coggin's threshold of pain. That seems ungodly to me. I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. He's kind of nuts.
Character.
Yeah, he character. I love him. But think about just the physicality. What makes the body or the mind say, I can't walk on coals because it's going to burn my feet? Like, it doesn't make sense from the meaning that you give in the past, from what you've learned, what you've been taught. We've been taught you put your hand on fire, your foot on fire, you physically will see it. Why is it you don't see it? Why is it that your skin won't burn, but someone else with a different mindset, their skin will burn? Think about when you achieve that and you're able to experience that, how it changes the way you look at people telling you that business is never going to work. That marriage is never going to work. This is never going to work for you. You're going to get burned. You're going to get burned. It changes everything. It's a life transformation.
So are you saying that if you can kind of mentally develop this limitless mindset, you could stand on hot coals and your skin won't burn just because?
You can walk on hot coals because your skin won't burn, correct? Because of you are part of a whole. You are a cellular structure. Your cells are yourselves. In fact, I was talking about my concierge doctor that studies my blood and my individual cells under a microscope, powerful microscope. And he shows how yourself is your cells and that they represent everything. And everything has these different electrons, neutrons, and protons, and that we can, as one with fire and heat, stop it from actually burning us. The same way you see people do these humanly impossible things, or they seem to be humanly impossible to us, but they're not to them. We have the same body. Why can't we do that?
Let me ask you, how did you develop this mindset, this mentality, this limitless, I'm in control, and whether it's not getting sick or not getting burned, both the metaphorically and in reality, like when and where did this come from?
So it started with the biggest transformation or expansion in my life. Most men go through a transformation called a quantum shift between 38 and 46, women 28 and 36, ironically, most. And for me,
they're always a little behind.
Well, we're inferior beings. Let's just be honest. This is fair. But where it becomes very interesting is that in the quantum shift, we are able to change and expand and transform into the infinite side of things. So for me, losing everything, over $100 million, went bankrupt in 2008, very real estate relative. It forced me through that to have faith. Think about faith. Faith is when there's no evidence or the evidence is contrary to where you want to be or better, and you still believe that you're supposed to be there and you can get there. That's what faith is. And what you believe in order to have that faith is critical. So for me, what started it was just plain faith that I was protected, promoted, loved, and perfected by what other people saw as something that was insurmountable. Most people thought that was the end of Dave Meltzer. Lost over $100 million, went bankrupt. I had to tell my mom I lost her house. And as you know, I grew up with 6 kids, grew up with a single mom. And she literally, the only reason I wanted to be rich was to buy her that house. And she wasn't even fazed by the fact I lost her house, by the fact I lost all my money. In fact, she was the one that told me, son, you just believe in the wrong God. You have the wrong faith. You're protected, promoted, loved, and perfected. I can't wait to see where you grow from this, what you become from this. It wasn't a punishment as I saw it. And so for now, 18 years later, as I sit here through that transformation, I've been practicing utilizing one thing, the certainty of tomorrow. There's only one certainty of tomorrow. In that, remember, human experience, heart starts, heart stops. It's time. Between the time my heart starts and the time my heart stops in the human experience, I'm given 24 hours a day. Every single day, except for the last day, I'll be cheated, and so will you. But under that perspective, I started to say, well, how much time am I going to spend in dis-ease? How much time am I going to let my hot coals burn my feet? Is it going to be minutes and moments, or is it going to be seconds and milliseconds or microseconds? Same thing we were talking about, just plain dis-ease in the physical form, a sickness, COVID or whatever. I'm sure I never got COVID officially. I've never tested positive. I tested 100 times. Sometimes they rubbed the outside of my nostrils and pretended to test me. Sometimes they think they took a sample from my brain. And I'm sure anyone that got tested by COVID always wondered how there was such a wide variety of testing. But more importantly, I believe that I probably got COVID 1,000 times because of my lifestyle, but it was just for minutes and moments. And whether it was vaccines or whatever else I was taking, I think it impacted me because I have such a stronghold on identifying the clues of disease, the patterns of disease, and then making physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional choices to shorten the distance of resistance. So how do I do that? I seek wisdom, number one, which is usually by asking for help, and two, having faith. I don't dwell in the negative. I wrote a book called Connected to Goodness that has a thing called Cancel, Clear, Connect in it. And for your community, I will sign, send, pay for shipping, pay for the book to everyone in their community if they email me, david@dmeltzer.com, put it in the notes, share it with your friends. Anyone out there, I will sign, send, pay for shipping and my book to teach them this one thing, that when your mind, body, or soul thinks of something negative, says something negative, does something negative, feels something negative, or believes something negative, say out loud, and if you can't, say it in your mind, cancel. I'm actually using man-made constructive time to stop negativity and create a pattern and a command, that's what we do with God, command. There are 10 commandments. That means we're working with God. We're part of God. He's not demanding, thou shalt not do this. He's commanding. And so I command myself, cancel that negativity. And then for the things that are deeper in our subconscious is a really dangerous thing because our subconscious inherits the energetic and genetic inheritance of our own genes, our own DNA, energetic and genetic inheritance. So 80% of the subconscious is repetitive, right? When we're sleeping, it's going. When we're in those zones, it's going. So what's the problem with the subconscious? If we're allowing all this negativity from the past and the present into our subconscious, 80% of our thoughts, beliefs, feelings, words, and actions are going to be negative and repetitive.
Yeah.
And so I'm shifting that whole paradigm. Then I teach in the book, and once again, please reach out. I teach you to shift the genetics and the energetics. I understand the epigenetic layer of the DNA, how it programs and activates who we truly are at our essence. And so I train people to connect in this realm, this energetic realm. And all three of these things, cancel, clear, connect, are actually time-based to shorten the distance of resistance using the wisdom that does, and there's a lot of science behind it, but also faith. Just straight faith. There's something bigger than me, loves me, protects me, promotes me, and perfects me.
I've actually been working on principles of success. And one of the things I wrote was avoid negative people. Okay. And you were touching about negativity, and probably the person from a negativity standpoint you should avoid the most is yourself being negative.
Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you say cancel, are you just saying, hey, I have to get rid of these negative thoughts, feelings, emotions just out of my head? And how would you advise someone do that?
Yeah. So canceling keeps it out of your cellular structure. So the interesting thing about our memory is we have three different memories. We have the conscious memory, which is based off of your cellular sensory cortex of your cells. That lasts, guess how long? 24 hours. And so you'll know this from sports. Why, Gladwell, 10,000 reps, but you've been around the people that their whole lives did the reps. See, the reason that works is, in this whole idea of 21 days to create a habit, is actually 21 days or more determined upon who you are to put something into your subconscious. Just because it's in your subconscious doesn't mean it's a habit. So if you've genetically and energetically inherited alcoholism and you stop drinking for 21 days, does that stop alcoholism? No. Right? And that's the problem that people think when they hear 21 days to start a habit, break a habit, change a habit. No, it's 21 days to program the subconscious from your conscious. So if I'm stopping all the toxic people, ideas, thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and actions by saying cancel, or by humanly when I'm doing something bad, stopping it, turning around, not going into the bar, not going into the places, not hanging out with the people that I should be hanging out with. I'm actually now controlling only positive information into my subconscious. Now I'm shifting that 80% to 79 to 78. So now I'm getting the exponential benefit because my subconscious is telling me, you're the man. You can do this. Go walk on that fire. You have plenty of time. You got so much energy. You're just interfering with it. Now, the more that happens, the more it's talking to the epigenetic layer, the activator of our genetics and energetics. It's a code. It's the one thing that in the realm of AI, I question if we're AI or not, because we are a code. And so it's very, very interesting. I tried just to enjoy the human experience without worrying whether I'm a computer or not. But needless to say, I'm enjoying myself. But you can see, so now if I have things that I can't get rid of, not just toxic people, but ideas that I wake up every morning worried about something, I know it's in my subconscious. So now I continually program myself to clear the subconscious of the negative thoughts, not cancel it, because it's in there. I got to clear it. So I'm making a commandment to clear. And then if there's deep-seated things, I unfortunately, like 1 in 4 men, was molested when I was 9 years old by a relative, repeatedly, by the way. And I have had, I'm going to choke up, but issues with that. Why? Consciously, I cancel it if it comes to me. Subconsciously, it's dissipating, but it's in my code.
Sure.
And so I have to do energetic work. I have to do things at a different realm. I've sought great gurus and shamans and wise people to help shift this energy. And we see that with extraordinary people like Bob Parsons, with GoDaddy, who had PTSD from being a bad Vietnam vet, and has utilized all types of great healing in order to facilitate his expansion of his own self-image.
You had touched on faith, and I was going to ask you, when you went bankrupt and lost $100 billion, you said that's when I think found faith. But I don't know, it seems there's a lot of people that if that had happened to them, that even no recovery, or they would never be the same, let alone almost like an evolved, approved version of yourself. Did that almost happen to you? And then it's like, in talking about what happened to you when you're 9, I bet multiple moments. Obviously, there's the money side. You've had these things happen to you as in terms of framing. How did you kind of dig deep and find the ability to bounce back and actually not let that, kind of dictate the rest of your life?
Blessed to have, number one, the mom that I had. So as different things happen that were challenging and painful, my mom always made my purpose greater than the pain. And so I've always been purpose driven. It started with just wanting to buy her a house. Why did I want it so bad? Even more than my siblings, because I love my mom so much. I watched her. I have a thing you're either taught or caught. Yeah, I was on the show, and so you might have even said it, but I did. Yeah, that I thought so.
I had some people over from out of town yesterday for dinner, and I was actually literally saying, there's this concept of being taught versus being caught. Yeah, knowledge.
My mom tried to teach me a lot. She's a teacher, 2nd grade teacher, principal, right? Sunday school teacher.
You had to catch the teaching,
but I had to catch, and I caught that, and then I also was blessed to catch my wife, and so. When my basement had a basement, my mom literally told me, like, I was so terrified what was going to happen when I told her I lost everything and her house. And she smirked at me. I thought she would break down crying in an old show, Sanford and Sons, Elizabeth, I'm coming, And I had my perspective was so off. And I literally told her I didn't believe in God. And she smirked at me and said that. You believe in God, but you just believe in the wrong God. You are protected, promoted, loved, and perfected. And this is going to send you on a path. And pain is the present path. It will prepare you for a different path. And if I can get more people in my mission, empowering over 1 billion people, that to understand pain is an indicator. They have a better place to be, a better position. And then you have to teach time, because things happen so slowly. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that's a major lesson I teach people.
It's true in business. It's true in life. Like it's like, oh, you're a 7-year overnight success story. Like for the first 6 years and 11 months, it feels like nothing. And then it feels like it happened overnight, but there was a lot of time and kind of a big swell behind the scenes. And then something kind of tips and it works. There's a lot of people who struggle to overcome challenges in their life. You touched on two very major ones, but it could be a divorce, it could be a failed business, it could be they didn't get the job they wanted, or they got cut from the team. What is, from a practical sense, in your opinion? I know part of this, like, in your work today, you coach people and develop them, oftentimes probably driven by them having some sort of rejection or failure, and say, hey, David, help me out. Like, what are the best steps from a practical sense to get started on responding to adversity?
Yeah. So number one, the general idea that the mistakes, failures, setbacks, defining moments, the historical relevances, all these things that people allow to limit them, all these things, the pain in your life will never stop you. Go study history. It'll show you human nature. Pain never stops anyone. Setbacks, failures, and mistakes never stop anyone. Our greatest of all topics, subject matters, and experts all have it. What do they all have in common, though? Oh, the desire that they must be what they can be. They lack no commitment. They lack no faith. And so I start with the premise that we together are going to work on the commitment side. And then we're going to reduce the mistakes and reduce the time that we spend in the pain and the struggle, because problems and solutions are given at the same time to us. Humans create a lapse of time between a problem and a solution. So wouldn't it stand to measure that the faster you can find the solution within the problem, the greater the advancement will be according to your definiteness of purpose. Notating again, in the equation of commitment is purpose has to be greater than pain. So I get people to understand their values and then create behaviors, practices aligned with their values in a definiteness of purpose, a divine direction. Therefore, when you're value-based, behavior-based, and directional in the divine, all detours now, all these mistakes that you talk about, these horrible things that happen to human beings, their life, everybody has at least one of them, I promise you. They might not tell you, but every single human being has one thing they can tell me really sucked. And it causes a lot of interference and limitation. That now becomes divine too.
Yeah, we talk about a lot on here. The difference of being victimized and a victim. To be victimized, it happens. That's that bad thing that can happen to you. You touched on some, and everybody has, even if it's just to them, but generally speaking, a very valid moment that they can share, and where they were victimized, something bad happened, and anybody listening would be like, man, that sucks. But I've always said to be a victim is kind of a mental state that you choose to stay in because of that moment you were victimized. And, I think so many people struggle, again, they could be big victimizations, like what you touched on, versus small. Oh, I got passed over for promotion, and it paralyzes these people, or it stops them in their tracks. And so many, it sounds like so many people get stuck in this rut and they don't know how to almost kickstart their life.
Which is so interesting, because one of the things that attracts me to hanging out with you is that I find it fascinating that most people in the world wouldn't understand how you are successful in what you do. Because most people, as much as they look at me saying, how did you survive that? Like, I couldn't imagine losing that much money and I know what it takes and what it feels like from running Lee Steinberg and working with Warren Moon and represent the Pro Football Hall of Fame and all the things I've gotten to do in sports. Like, I understand, but I'm sure couldn't imagine the amount of expectation and pressure. Like, for me, it was money. Like, I thought I was Midas. People identified me with money. I identified me with money. I know that when you were at USC, people identified you with football.
Yeah.
And to not make the NFL was equal to energetically me losing everything, because you lost your identity at a young age. And so to be able to take the lessons and the commitment that you learned to be who you were at USC and move it into a different subject matter, topic, and expertise has created an amazing amount of abundance, and will, in the long run, the Kyle Matthews brand will be known as well as your brothers and your dad and your grandfather in a different space. And probably economically, you'll do better than all of them if you're not already.
Yeah.
Especially your grandfather.
Yeah. Well,
Because I know how much they paid back then.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. Not to,
Bobby Bell told me he made $8,000 a year and had to drive a taxi.
My grandfather played for the 49ers, and him, my grandmother, and they had 5 kids, and he couldn't support his family on the salary of 5. And so he played 5-6 years for the Niners, and eventually he said, there's more money in business, and he actually worked his way up to be the CEO of a big public company. But yeah, that absolutely was, and I've talked about it on this show and in talks, and I don't shy away from it. Yeah, I felt like a failure, and people are like, oh, that's not fair to you. It's like, I hear you, but like that's what I felt, and you can't have all the upside and none of the downside. The upside was I used that as fuel to where, like, I'm not going to be a failure. And yeah, it's not going to be football. It's going to be this real estate thing. Like, I am going to, be successful, and I'm not going to have failure attached to my name. And that was outside of, in addition to financial security and providing for family and, all the normal motivations that I think most
blowing out of bed without completely being in pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an upside to your career ending shortly. And then
I look at that side when my career ended at the same time.
I got robbed there. Even to this day, I didn't play in the league, and I still roll out of bed with pain. I'm like, what is going on? I think they just call that age.
Yeah.
But no, it was a huge driver for me, and it sounds like that moment for you, kind of going bankrupt. And what have you seen are the most common characteristics in people who you've come across, whether you coached them, they're friends, or they're people that you've met in all your travels, all your speeches, everything, where they really responded well to that adversity? And then what do you think is the most common reason why people don't?
Consistency. People talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. They think about the extra mile, and they'll give me the extra mile. What does that mean? And you've seen this on the football field. They go the extra mile every once in a while for the big play, for when the practice, the big team. They go the extra mile every once in a while. Then they use that to justify why they are not where they want to be.
See, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's the NP mile. And that's why time for me is so important. I am probably the most consistent person that you'll ever meet. I have non-negotiable behaviors that are aligned with where I want to be or better, and I become an expert at prioritizing negotiable behaviors, circumstantial behaviors. Half of my days, non-circumstantial. I've taken all the uncertainty out of half of my life because no matter what, I'm going to sleep a minimum of 7 hours. No matter what, I'm going to spend an hour on my health. No matter what, I'm going to spend an hour with my family. No matter what, I'm going to spend time on my finance. Every day, 7 days a week. It's Saturday right now. I'm doing what I do non-negotiable. The irony is, beyond your sleep in the non-negotiable active awake behavior, I have 12 hours a day to do whatever I want that is circumstantial. I can add more time to my family. I can add more time to my finance. I can add more time to my faith, the study of time, the study of relativity, according to the circumstances of the day, aligning the lessons, the meaning of the past with my divine direction. It's a direction, not an outcome.
You had such a great line. It was a video popped up on my feed. Oh, and you're going to have to help me. It was 3 things. You spend a third of your life, with your wife. So you got to get a good wife, or else you'll be miserable. You spend a third of your time working, and so you find something you love to do, or else you'll be miserable. You spend a third of your time sleeping, so find a really good mattress.
Yeah. I said sleeping and stooping, which is brought to and I got 4 kids.
Yeah. Oh, so your grandfather told you that?
Grandfather told me. I went to college. He said, look, life's simple. And he gave me that piece of advice.
It was the most simple breakdown of life. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I really got to look at my mattress,
And I got the Oura ring, so you write on it.
That's right. So what does a day in the life of David Meltzer look like to you today?
Yeah, so very time conscious. But circumstances play a big role in my relationship to the circumstances. So in order to do that, I stick to my non-negotiables first.
And those are family.
Sleep first.
Sleep, yeah.
Then health, which pains later in life.
I don't want to make assumptions. Is that a certain amount of minutes a day you work out?
Yes. So it's a minimum of an hour a day on it, because it varies, right? You can't do the same level of cardio every day, but you should do cardio every day. You can't do the same level of strength training every day, but you should do something for your strength. Balance, flexibility, all of these different things, meditation. So
I was going to say that these are my own definitions of physical health. And then I was like, what are your thoughts, or what is your approach towards what, kind of has recently come into the lexicon of it's mental health?
yeah,
Meditation.
yeah. Well, meditation in the cancel clear connect, right? I'm constantly controlling, regulating the information and the energy that's unlimited. And we're becoming more and more aware of how unlimited energy is and how unlimited information is. You see, we want to regulate it so that we can maximize it. How do we regulate it? Well, number one, we have to identify what interferes with it. People, places, things, ideas, feelings, beliefs, etc. They're interfering with it. Worrying interferes with it. Anger interferes with it. I call them reactions to fear. I don't really care about the fear and trauma that the molestation when I was 9. I really don't care anymore. What I care about is how am I reacting to fear that was relative to that. So I look for the need, when I have a need to be offended, that's a big part of my inheritance. I just can't help myself.
Need to be offended.
Yeah, I have a need to be offended.
There are people like that.
Yeah, it is.
I've never heard it put like that. It's so good. There are people who they seek out being offended.
Yeah, that was me. And I would do good things almost so I could feel offended. Like they didn't appreciate me.
Yeah.
And so I had to get rid of that. The need to be right, that's an obvious one. The need to be separate, inferior, the need to be superior, the need to be angry, upset, guilty, resentful. All of these things I started studying. And I'm shortening the amount of time. So when I identify the clue, oh, you got a need to be offended, that's a pattern. That's stop, cancel. And so I utilize my time 24 hours a day. I call it being a student of the calendar. There's a mathematical equation to luck. And I'm going to give it to everyone. And it's really simple, but I guarantee it works. What you pay attention to. So I'm paying attention to the activities during my day, and I'm trying to utilize 24 hours the best that I can in alignment with where I want to be. 2, what I give intention to. Doing, saying, thinking, feeling, and believing. So I have this formula. Pay attention to what you want in the direction that you want to be in. Give it your intention, the empty miler, the consistent, persistent pursuit. Learn to love what you don't like and don't love. Learn to love what other people don't like and love. And understand good behavior is aligned with where you want to be or better. Bad behavior interferes with it. Also note that my good behavior could be your bad behavior. Your bad behavior could be my good behavior. Just determine on where you want to be. But the formula comes into effect. What you pay attention to, what you give intention to, equals the coinciding of the universe, the coincidences, the consequences, the results, the outcomes. It is mathematically. You are lucky if you pay attention to what you feel is luck. You give it your intention, you will be lucky.
One of the things I want to touch on with you, you had mentioned molestation, and that's as high up the ladder of terrible as it gets, but the concept of forgiveness and kind of moving on, how do you, did you ever, or how did you get to a point where you could forgive someone for that and almost forgive yourself so that you could move forward in life?
Well, first of all, you always have to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't give what you don't have. And that's true. That's why my motto is make a lot of money to help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. You can't help other people with money if you don't have it.
Yeah.
So I put it first. I can't. So forgiveness to me, I've studied for 10 years something called the Course in Miracles. And I've worked really hard to define forgiveness, first of all. And I've simplified, as I always like to do things, because people learn them easier if I can make these simple. 3 things to be happy. Oh shit! I get to make money, help people.
I love
the bad, the white.
Really, the simple definition of forgiveness.
Forgiveness is forgiving your perception of what other people think, and forgiving other people for the perception of what you think. Understanding that that's what causes us to have these interferences, and so I forgive myself. Because in the realm, that activity happened and I survived. But my bigger concern was my perception of what other people think, or the perception of what they think I'm thinking. And so I went through this thing about, I can't tell my mom. This will destroy, at 9 years old, we have no money, 6 kids. If I tell everyone what's happening, it's going to ruin everyone's life. Everyone's. That was just a perception, what other people think. In my perception of what they think I was thinking. And it's a simple thing to forgive. And I know, and it doesn't go away, the pain. You can see it. You can kind of hear it in my voice as I get kind of choked up still. I'm 57 years old. It's almost 50 years removed from this traumatic experience. I believe the same thing could happen in past lives. I believe in the infinite. So my past spirit, some stuff is still probably impacting my daily activities. But forgiveness to me is a lifelong pursuit. The greatest forgivers and the greatest gratitude people are going to live a life of ease, enjoyment, fulfillment, purpose. Because if you don't, you are accelerating the interference. You're the victim, not the victor. And so I study forgiveness alongside gratitude, incorporating this idea of accountability. So accountability is the regulator of human experience. Remember I told you, we're here, the rules of life are, you're given a body, it's given to you to learn lessons. You're going to learn lessons and keep on learning them. They keep on happening until you learn them. You'll forget every lesson you ever learned, but you have the power to remember it. And so within that context, forgiveness allows us to continue to remember, remind, and recollect the lessons without stopping us from the progress that we want to make in the divine direction. And it creates more detours than divine detours. And it's a perspective builder.
What advice would you have to help people not forget lessons? They have the power to not forget it.
Yeah. So and this is my business model.
Yeah.
I believe that if we capture the lessons that resonate, because of technology, it's much easier to capture lessons. And when I say resonate with us, it's not just, I'll give you one of my favorite ones. You're either humble or you're about to be. If you were going to ask me, Dave, what's one of the lessons you don't want to ever forget? And I still do. I forgot it when my mom died, because I thought that I could handle it. And I realized you're either humble or you're about to be.
Yeah, that's a great line.
So I capture it, and then I create a story around it and to teach other people. For example, I told this story about my mom to identify humility, because everybody's thinking, oh, Dave's talking about when he lost over $100 million, and he obviously wasn't humble at that time, and then he was about to be. Yes, that was the old story. Now it has to do with my mom. But here's the one that really has changed my life. I capture lessons or things that bother me. So when someone says something that I totally disagree with, or it causes anger in me, it causes then I take my hardcore disagreement and I go and do research on why am I feeling that? It's just an idea. It's just my perceptions of what someone thinks, or I think that they think about me. And so I use forgiveness in order to effectuate this great capture and story. And then I remember it better. I remind it better, because the way the human mind works through history and human nature, which is why I study history, is all art and sculpture and all of those. They're there to teach us lessons, to tie a story. I mean, the Italian frescoes that are on, entire building, they used to hire docents to walk people like a movie. Hey, here's the story. Here's the lesson. And that's how they build culture, the same way that our content builds culture.
It's incredible. You were talking about like the need to be offended, and it's like when someone has a different opinion, it almost makes you like, that's offensive.
Oh, my wife gets offended. Don't talk politics in front of my wife, right? And I'm living here going, why are we wasting energy?
Yeah.
Why not appreciate our differences? Use all that energy to ask questions. Why do you think that? What does that actually mean to you? How does that impact your life? I want to learn more about you. I want to be more interested than interesting, because the whole solution that we need is DAI. We need diversity. We need inclusion. We need equity of opportunity, but not equity. Look, as far as I know, I'm the only one of billions and billions of people that has this. That means I'm not equal. I'm different. So in the aspect of that, why aren't we teaching people to appreciate our differences? Because if we can learn to add value, that means appreciate. You're in real estate. As far as I remember, the house goes up in value, it appreciates.
Yes.
So if we would appreciate our differences, it would go up in value instead of down in value. And inherent in the duplicity of the equity side of what we're teaching people, We're not equal. So we're creating a counterintuitive, counterproductive, conflictual idea. Instead of teaching the empowerment of appreciation, we're creating an empowerment of separation because it's impossible to be equal.
Yeah, the concept of equity, everybody is equal, everybody's the same. And to your point, everybody is unique and therefore, by definition, different.
Yeah, right. Let's appreciate it.
Let's appreciate it. Let's celebrate it.
And give equal.
What did the A stand for again?
A, appreciation.
Appreciate.
Yeah, diversity, appreciation, and inclusion. Not diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. What would be a first step for someone listening to, gosh, we covered so much. I don't even know how to kind of frame it into a bucket of like adjectives or acronyms. Like there's so many, to take that first step in, I guess,
Transformation.
Yeah.
The first step is to take inventory of your own self. And so I teach people to learn and take inventory of their own skills, their own knowledge of who and what, and their own desires, their own.
Can I ask, like, what does that mean? Literally, like writing a list down of here is what I think my skills are. Here are who I think the people I know are.
Yeah, and these skills can be soft and hard skills.
Okay.
And I think they're very important because of the enormous amount of opportunities, options, and touches of favor that we're given. And that if we don't know our own skills, our own knowledge of who and what, and our own desires, we can't align it with what's doing well today, what's stable today, and what I think is going to be doing well in the future. And this doesn't necessarily mean just business. Obviously, I use it in real estate all the time. Yeah. And I have a whole bunch of strategies that have been evolved from the $100 million I lost because I continually take inventory in that with not just my own person, but even my businesses. What are the capabilities, the skills of the business? What's the knowledge base of the business, of the who and the what? And what are the desires of the business, the collective consciousness? And so I think a lot of people, you can't find outside of you what you can't see inside of you. So I have people look inside of them so they then reflect outside of them their desire of what they want or better, utilizing the mathematical equation of luck in order to do so. That's why I'm very pragmatic in teaching people. I start with values, I go to daily practices, daily behaviors, then I go to an execution model of this kind of capture, distribute, then to prioritize, and then execute or redistribute. This is a very basic format that I use. And then I learn through the inventory of self how to incentivize, inspire the person by allowing them to apply their why, not search for it. You see, if you know what you want, who you can help and who can help you, how best to use the 24 hours that you're given every day in order to effectuate the divine direction, and learn to prioritize from that, because now you know what's important, and utilizing urgency as a subset according to the circumstances of the day, we now, instead of living our lives, like Napoleon Hill says, 98% of the people on earth live their life as twos. Food in, food out.
Food out.
Nothing. They live in nothing.
It's a polite way to put it.
You know your what? Everything becomes a possibility. You know your who? It becomes a probability. You know your how? It becomes your perspective. You prioritize it. You know your now. 100% of the things you do now and do next get done. It becomes your reality. Now you're in a real state of mind, heart, body, and soul. You can apply your why by shortening the distance of resistance instead of searching for what you think is your why, when it's really you're searching for your what, your who, your how, and your now. And so I help people pragmatically through this framework make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. And the reason I do it is I've never met one person on earth that makes a lot of money, helps a lot of people, and has a lot of fun every day that isn't happy.
I couldn't imagine they wouldn't be. Right?
Simple, right?
Makes a lot of money, helps a lot of people,
and has a lot of fun.
and has a lot of fun. Yeah.
And my definition of fun, by the way, is your ability to enjoy everything. What you don't like, don't love, what other people don't like and don't love, in a consistent, everyday manner, in a persistent, without quit manner, the commitment side of it, in the pursuit of its potential. Whatever the divine direction is, I'm pursuing, because I just did a training. I do Free Friday training for 26 years. I just did a training on you'll never.
Free Friday training. Where do you find this?
Well, Well, email me, and we have over 100,000 people registered. We do a Napoleon Hill training on Wednesdays as well. You can reach out. It's on every format. So if you're on my LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, it goes live every Friday as well. But there is a registered seminar that we produce as well. But if you're chasing more, you'll never get it. There's always more. That's the definition of infinite.
Yeah.
And so many people are chasing more instead of, I'll be happy when, ask yourself, for the sake of what? I'll be happy when I make $1 million. No, I'm going to make $1 million for the sake of, your whole life will change.
There hasn't been a show that's gone by where I haven't asked the guest, point us in the direction of a course, give us a book that could help for, like, from a practical skill standpoint, help the audience. But you already touched on, talk to us about the Napoleon Hill Institute. I know it's a big thing to you.
Yeah.
Give guidance to the audience why they should check it out and what they might be able to learn in addition to the books.
Napoleon Hill in the 1930s was the seminal grandfather of personal professional development. What he wrote in Think and Grow Rich, which when I read it at 19 changed my life. And I used to joke every time I read it, I made another $1 million. But it's beyond Think and Grow Rich. Outwitting the Devil changed my life at 57 when I read it. It was his family.
That one's not as well known.
No, right? Because his family and him, because
they
of the content
sat on it, right?
They sat on until 2010. And because they were afraid, because he explains what we're learning today, education, politics, healthcare, all the facades that people are fighting for today to change. He predicted, he even said, this is in 1930s. He said smoking is going to be the number one thing that causes people to drift in their life. That it is the biggest interference. If you smoke cigarettes, and this is before any science back. Oh my God, everybody was.
Why did he say that?
Because he understood the interferences of life. He understood he calls it drifting. I call it interfering. The drifters are the 98%. Those that live in the definiteness of purpose. And so all the greats, Tony Robbins, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Bob Proctor, Earl Nightingale, all of the greats that I learned from, all learned from Napoleon Hill and continue to do so. So when I was tapped to be the chairman of Napoleon Hill Institute, to worldwide amplify using my knowledge of the traditional way people learn, because I'm right in that age group, right? I was blessed to be in technology in 92. I've been in technology a long time, but I'm old school. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a color TV. And I've seen the entire spectrum of growth.
Sure.
I think I was tapped. My calling was to revitalize the greatest information that we've received for the way we work here in America. The mindset, heart set, and handset. The masterminds that I do, I just did the master's mastermind. A lot of people still don't even know what masterminds are. But everybody that comes is like, holy shit. Because it is the core. There's also the 17 success principles, and there's how to sell through life. There's also an operating system that we're going to be publishing that's in a manuscript that was hand typed. So there's probably more information from Napoleon Hill that I'm finding now that I'm the chairman that we're going to revitalize worldwide, because he didn't have the access to the whole world. I can post a video and get access to more people than Napoleon Hill. Think about how many interviews I did at office hours. 72, by the way, in case you were counting.
That's more than even I thought. And I was just like, this guy is a machine. Like, it did not stop. And even between the interviews, you were doing so left, right, and center.
Yeah. Another framework. Yeah. Notice everything I do is this: experiential, business development, and post-production content. So at the Masters, I wanted to have this great experience, right? I like to have fun. I want to learn. All this is experiences, but I also am looking business development, because my community, I want to be able to have a community of people like you guys. We're here to help each other and know people that help each other, that are going to buy from each other and sell for each other for life.
Yeah.
Nothing will make the Matthews company bigger than having millions of people that buy from you and sell for you for life.
Agreed.
You will never starve. Great kids. So experiential business development. Now, my real advantage that I have is that I understood post-production content at a very early stage of it. So I realized from Shakespeare, the whole world is your stage. And the bigger the stages and the bigger the people, that's why I'm at SoFi. That's why I'm at the Wynn. That's why I'm in Sirius XM in New York City. That's why I'm at the Masters, the Super Bowl. Why? Those are big stages.
Yeah, they are.
And that's why I bring the big people, like the Les Browns, the Kyle Matthews, the Bob Pro, all these guys are around me, because the bigger the stage and the bigger the people, the greater the access to 7.6 billion people, the total addressable community. More people will watch that and learn from it.
And the one thing you looking to provide value.
Always.
Last,
Can I describe that real quick?
yeah, no,
It's the most important thing for me.
Yeah.
I simplify value. And I think this is one of my greatest.
It's good. You said, like, and it was in your bio that I read at the beginning of the show. It was like, it's mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy by providing what they value. But then you had also talked about values. But it's funny. I was like, I wonder what he means by value. But you asked the question for me, so thank you.
Yes.
Tell us what it means.
So I've simplified that as well. I believe value can only be derived in two ways. Giving people what they like, more of what they like, more of what's working, and more of what they know. If you give people more of what they like, more of what's working, and more of what they know, that's quantitative value. I can put a number to it. The other way we provide value is taking away what you don't like, taking away what's not working, and taking away what you don't know. And so everything that I do is intentional. I do say, think, feel, and believe to provide you value. So I created an open-ended question template for open-minded people, because I don't waste because there's such a total addressable community today. I don't, like, when there's only 300,000 people, I had to really work on the whole selling thing. Not anymore. I just find an open mind. Find out, what do you know? What do you like? What don't you like? What's working? What's not working? In commercial real estate, leasing, short-term rentals, I don't give a shit what it is, but I want to find out what all that is, because then I just ask a simple question. Would it help you if? Would it help you if I gave you more of what you like? Would it help if I took away some of what you don't like?
Yes.
Then I say, do you know anyone that could help me? This is what I'm looking to do. And you see how this simple little format, and along with my book, if anyone wants the open-minded, open question guide, I will send it to them, david@dmeltzer.com as well. This template will make you millions of dollars. Yeah. And it's the simplest way that I teach people to quantify and articulate quantifiable value to exceed what you're asking for. I call it the 120 rule. If I offered you $100 and said, look, give me $20, Kyle, I'll give you 100. Most people, if they find me credible, will say absolutely. That's why most people that find me credible, no matter what I'm asking when I say, would it help you if, or do you know anyone that could help me? They say absolutely, because I've done the 120 value.
Do you know of anyone who could help me? I was just, again, I have a bad habit of looking through so much through the lens of commercial real estate. As professional, that's where I've spent, most of my life. And we were always taught, and even now I was so bad at this. It was ask for a referral, like, hey, write down the name of someone who might be able to use my services. I found that people, this is my opinion, it's just, I can't prove this, but people are actually much kinder and much better than on average we give them credit for. And I think an overwhelming majority in all the sign of population, 99.99%, have an inherent desire to help people.
Yeah, well, you're nailing it. Most people cheat people, and unintentionally, because they don't ask, do you know anyone that could help me? Remember, I'm also asking you in a more subtle way. So if I ask you, hey, do you know anyone that can help me? I need a ride to the airport. You may say, Dave, I can give you a ride to the airport. I used to be afraid to do that. But then I realized one thing. When somebody asks me to do something for them and I'm capable of doing it, nothing makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And why would I cheat you?
You cheating yourself. You're robbing yourself of feeling good about who you are as a person if you don't help that person, because it does make you feel better. And I was just thinking, like, man, I need to switch up. We coach sales cadence here, and instead of ask for the referral, it's almost better if you say, hey, at the end of the breakfast meeting where I'd meet you for the first time, we're not going to do any business yet, but just like, hey, do you know of anyone who could help me? Because they already kind of know what you do. They know you're a broker. They know the service you provide.
Well, that's why I speak so much. I get hired by sales groups like yours because I come in and say, look, yes, I'm going to ask for money to speak, but I'm going to guarantee it. you're doing this much money. I guarantee within 90 days that I will increase your revenue 5%, 10%, or 20%, depending on what I see and who's there. And then I say, can you see any reason you won't want me to speak to your sales group? I guarantee it, meaning what? If you come to me and say, Dave, we only made $1.5 million and we paid you $100,000 to speak, and I guaranteed that you'd make $2.5 million, I'll give you back the $100,000. And I do this in charitable events. I got hired by Boy Scouts of America. They were looking at me and Mike Tirico. First question I asked is, why do you want him? Well, because he's a big name. So I was like, yeah. And they said to me that he's bigger than you. Why are you more expensive? Because he was 50 or 75 and I'm 100. They said, well, because he's bigger than him. Why are you more expensive? I said, well, what's your reason? Do you need to sell tickets? Because if you're selling tickets, hire Mike, right? Because that's where you need a big name. You want Magic Johnson? He's going to sell more tickets than David Meltzer. But what's your purpose of the annual meeting, 7,000 Boy Scout leaders to raise money? Oh, interesting. I said, well, here's what it is. Pay me $100,000. What'd you raise last year? They said $1.2 million. I said, I guarantee I'll raise you over $2 million this year. You will raise, I guarantee it, or don't pay me. And they're like, really? And then they said, well, we only have a budget of 75. I said, I'll take it.
Smartness is here.
Right.
Last thing.
And I did it, by the way.
And did you raise the way more? Very cool. And that's it.
But I would have sold more tickets than Mike Tirico.
It's the tickets showing up, that might be the name.
When people, what do you say when they're honest about it, right? Like, hey, people, I love when people go up to you and they probably do this to you. Hey, sorry, I didn't know who you were. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, you and about 7 point whatever billion people don't know who I am. That many people don't know who Kim Kardashian is, believe it or not. Billions of people don't know who she is.
I wish less people knew who she is.
Well, remember, the people that know who she are, that's their frequency. Yeah. She's protecting us. Yeah. It's a different crowd.
Last takeaway, or last kind of, takeaway for the audience. Any advice you'd give them, as we kind of wrap up the show? Anything?
Yeah, I think kindness is underrated. So my advice always is to think about kindness in an extended version of yourself, meaning don't just be kind to your future self. Do good deeds.
And you mean that like
forgive, be grateful, be accountable, be inspired. And in the short run, nothing stops an attack more than kindness and generosity. When people steal from me, I give them more and it stops. When people manipulate me, I give them forgiveness and give them more and they stop. I hold that power, that certainty in my life. And so for me, I remind myself when I get aggravated and things don't seem, no evidence or evidence is contrary to what it be, I just say, be kind. Be kind to your future self. Don't counterattack. Just stop it right here and move on. And so many people I coach, I've changed their lives by teaching them to stop, to drop down to center, to breathe, get at ease, and roll back into your divine direction instead of accelerating to the wrong.
Well, you've been very kind with your time. You have delivered a lot of value to me personally and the audience. Can't thank you enough for being. This is really cool. I'm glad we were able to get this done when you were in town.
Amazing. Let's do it again. Come and visit me. Be a part of it. I look forward to seeing both of you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.